Calm before the storm as typhoon signal number 3 could be issued tomorrow. Legislators visit Fujian to build closer ties. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The tropical cyclone warning standby signal number 1 is now in effect, and the observatory is considering to raise the typhoon warning signal to number 3 tomorrow morning. This as several regions across Hong Kong experience high temperatures as tropical storm Talib nears. Timothy Lee has our top story.
A heat wave has swept through the city, awaiting the arrival of the latest tropical storm. Edging closer to Hong Kong, the storm is currently situated around the northern part of the South China Sea, around 500 kilometers away from the SAR. The typhoon is expected to gradually grow stronger as it moves closer towards western Guangdong and Hainan province. Despite the heat, along the West Kowloon waterfront promenade, residents could still be seen jogging prior to the expected deteriorating weather. Several regions around the city reported temperatures close to 40 degrees. Areas such as Wong Tai Sin, Sham Shui Po, Kowloon City reached above 36 degrees, and as high as 38 degrees at the Hong Kong Wetland Park in Tin Shui Wai. The Environmental Protection Department reminded residents of the poor air quality caused by Tropical Storm Talib, and predicted that several areas in the city will experience very high to serious health risks. In parts of Yuen Long this afternoon, many pedestrians could be seen carrying umbrellas. Those without the protection of shade carried miniature fans. This woman said she's dealing with the extreme heat by going to an air-conditioned karaoke bar. This woman recalled that temperatures in Hong Kong used to be much cooler. The observatory expects that Hong Kong will experience thunderstorms on Sunday as the weather gets worse, and noted that the tropical storm could reach the Pearl River Delta region between Sunday evening and Monday. Meanwhile, the tropical storm signal number 1 remains in effect in Macau and is expected to remain in force throughout the night. The signal is likely to be raised to number 3 on Sunday afternoon. Local authorities announced that there is a very high chance that the enclave will experience about 0.7 meters of flooding next week. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong lawmakers have embarked on a 5-day trip to Fujian. The tour aims to forge deeper ties between the SAR and the southern Chinese province. More than 30 lawmakers set off for Fujian this morning. This is the second mainland trip the city's legislative councillors have undertaken since the borders reopened. DAB lawmaker Sarah Lee said she hopes the trip could further strengthen Hong Kong's economic cooperation with Fujian, which is seen as a starting point of the ancient maritime Silk Road. The delegation reached Fuzhou in the afternoon and visited the Fuzhou New District, a development area established in 2015 by the State Council, with an international data hub set up for Hong Kong enterprises to provide cross-border data storage. The trip aims to help lawmakers understand Fujian's latest development in finance, trade, logistics, and heritage conservation efforts. The lawmakers will also meet municipal officials. Their itinerary also includes visits to businesses, students, and retirees from Hong Kong in Fujian. The Social Welfare Department's Fujian scheme was launched in 2018 to facilitate Hong Kong senior citizens' retirement in Fujian, while continuing to receive allowances from the SAR government. Meanwhile, LegCo President Andrew Leung confirmed the cancellation of a trip to Beijing by the lawmakers, originally slated for September. He said they could not work out the dates for the tour that suited both sides. 18 people have been sentenced to between 36 and 57 months behind bars for rioting outside the Polytechnic University during the anti-government protests in 2019. All 19 defendants aged 17 to 31 at the time were charged with rioting on Nathan Road between Waterloo Road and Hamilton Street in Yau Ma Tei in November 2019. The sentence for the 17-year-old girl was adjourned until August 5th. One defendant, Thomas Chang, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a 3-year jail term. Others were all convicted after a trial. One of them, Cheng Chun-hung, was convicted of rioting as well as possessing an instrument with intent to damage property. He received a prison sentence of 4 years and 9 months. China has invited Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a state visit later this year. The visit raises hope that China could help facilitate peace between Israel and Arab countries, as well as Palestine. In an exclusive interview with the Israeli Consul General in Hong Kong, Amir Lati said international mediation could not replace direct dialogue. This aerial and ground offensive in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin early this month is Israel's largest military operation in the Palestinian territory in 20 years. Under China's mediation, Saudi Arabia and Iran re-established diplomatic relations after 7 years of bitter rancor. Last month, President Xi Jinping met with Palestine's leader Mahmoud Abbas.
Welcome.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been invited to visit Beijing in October. Some hope China could help facilitate dialogue between the different sides.
Of course, some support for international community will be welcomed, but again, it cannot substitute, it cannot replace the direct dialogue between us and our neighbors.
Israel's Consul General in Hong Kong and Macau, Amir Lati, is referring to direct peace deals such as the Abraham Accords they signed with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain 3 years ago. Able to speak fluent Putonghua, Lati has served as a diplomat in Chinese cities such as Shanghai, Sichuan, and Chongqing for 9 years. How does he see the Sino-US conundrum? As the rivalry between China and the U.S. continues, how do you think Israel could position itself between the two powers?
The United States is a strategic partner of Israel, which our relations with them are across the board. And it's a country that stood side by side with Israel at our most difficult times, and our bonds with them are very, very strong. China is an important economic partner of Israel. And we admire the Chinese civilization because we believe that, like ourselves, we might be young countries, but we represent all civilizations.
Lati also said Hong Kong is a great gateway for Israeli startups to explore the vast hinterland up north and markets down south.
For Israeli companies, young companies, they have good technology, but they don't have a lot of resources. Entering China as a market requires resources. Hong Kong could serve as a softer landing point, if you will, to enter China, and also to some Southeast Asian countries.
Consul General Amir Lati also told us he hopes they could set up a Jewish or Hebrew center with Hong Kong universities for Hong Kong people to understand more of their culture. Extreme heat is affecting large parts of the U.S. and Europe. Human-caused climate change is being blamed for the high temperatures. In many places in the southwestern U.S., extreme temperatures could break records. American and European authorities have issued warnings to residents and tourists amid the sweltering conditions. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Nearly a third of Americans are currently under extreme heat advisories, watches, and warnings. The blistering heat wave is forecast to get worse this weekend for the states of Nevada, Arizona, and California. There, desert temperatures are predicted to soar past 48.8 degrees Celsius during the day. A series of blazes have erupted across California. Firefighters in Riverside County, southeast of Los Angeles, are seeking to extinguish multiple brush fires. The Secretary of the U.S. Natural Resources Agency said global climate change is supercharging the heat waves. An expert explained what is driving the high temperatures.
So the big thing that's causing these high temperatures is a very strong area of high pressure sitting over the area. Right now, the high pressure is strengthening over California, and we're seeing this high pressure get to near record levels in terms of its intensity.
Meanwhile, the European Space Agency, whose satellites monitor land and sea temperatures, have warned that Italy, Spain, France, Greece, Germany and Poland are all facing extreme conditions. The ESA has predicted that temperatures next week could break Europe's current record, 48.8 degrees Celsius, recorded in Sicily in August 2021. In Athens, with temperatures peaking above 40 degrees Celsius on Friday, authorities closed top tourist attraction, the Acropolis, home to the Parthenon Temple, from noon to 5 p.m. Huge crowds had earlier formed long queues in the heat to enter the site. The hill becomes particularly stifling due to its altitude and lack of shade. Greece's Civil Protection Ministry warned of the risk of forest fires. The ministry told people to avoid tasks such as burning weeds for fear of setting off blazes. Elsewhere, Turkish authorities have been battling wildfires amid rising temperatures in the Mughal province. A village in the region was evacuated to avoid loss of life. Footage from Turkey's General Directorate of Forestry showed the extent of the fires, as well as helicopters and planes attempting to prevent fires spread by dropping water. While the fires have been controlled, it's thought the intensity of the blazes has been increasing. Daniel, TV News.
Still ahead. Serial killer arrested in the U.S. Understand what is sustainable seafood. Welcome back. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol made a surprise visit to Ukraine today. Yoon's office said he traveled to Ukraine with his wife following trips to Lithuania for a NATO summit and Poland. The South Korean leader is scheduled to hold talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Meanwhile, Zelensky said Russia is throwing all its resources into a campaign to stop Kyiv's troops from pressing their counteroffensive, and a top general reported new progress on the southern front. General Alexander Tarnavsky, commander of Ukrainian forces in the south, said his troops were systematically moving the enemy out of their positions. He said Russian losses over the past 24 hours were equivalent to at least 200. Russia's defense ministry in its daily report said its forces had repelled 16 Ukrainian attacks on the eastern front, including near the long-contested town of Marinka. In the U.S., striking actors joined film and television writers on picket lines Friday, the first day of a dual stoppage that has forced U.S. studios to shutter productions as workers battle over pay in an era of streaming TV. Actors and writers are demanding increases in base pay and residuals and fees paid from streaming, as well as assurances that their work will not be replaced by artificial intelligence. Tracy Furness has more.
These were the scenes outside Netflix Sunset Boulevard Studios in Los Angeles Friday. Representatives from both SAG-AFTRA, Hollywood's biggest union representing 160,000 actors, and the Writers Guild of America were making their voices heard.
The working class actor is, in fact, working class. Celebrities make up a very small portion of the Screen Actors Guild membership. A lot of people are getting by from job to job, which means check to check. A lot of us rely on residual income, and for the studios to be hesitant to give us our fair share of residual income, it's really disappointing, and it's disheartening.
I actually make less money working in film than I did in the year 1990. It's really scary with the artificial intelligence, and I have one thing to say: if you want this voice, you gotta pay for it.
Artificial intelligence has become a sensitive issue for film and television actors who fear AI could be used to duplicate their voices and likenesses. This is one of the sticking points in contract talks with the Hollywood studios, which ended with no agreement.
This is what democracy looks like.
There were similar scenes in New York. The twin strikes are the first such joint effort strikes of writers and actors in more than 60 years. Actors joining the picket line Friday adds to the multi-million-dollar economic damage to the film and television industry caused when the writers started their strike on May 2nd. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
In the U.S., a male architect has been arrested in connection with serial killings in New York more than a decade ago. This report from NBC News.
Rex, did you do it?
Handcuffed and flanked by authorities, Rex Heuermann taken to a Long Island courthouse today in a case that has confounded investigators for more than a decade.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
Victims' families tearful as authorities announced the 59-year-old father and husband was charged with first and second-degree murder of 3 women: Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Their remains discovered within a quarter-mile stretch near Gilgo Beach back in 2010. In all, 11 bodies were recovered in that area during sweeping search efforts, sending a wave of fear over Long Island residents.
I know there's a community out there that, as the facts unfold, will be sleeping a lot easier tonight.
After following him through the city last night, captured on this surveillance video, today investigators searching Hiraman's Manhattan architecture firm and home in Massapequa Park, New York. Key evidence accumulating this year, including the recent discovery of his Chevrolet Avalanche towed from his property today. A witness to one of the victims' disappearance had described that vehicle according to court documents. Police say Hiraman was also tied to burner phones, seen here loading more minutes onto the device. And authorities pulled his DNA from pizza crusts tossed in a Manhattan trash can. Neighbors on Long Island stunned to learn of the suspected serial killer living next door.
The guy's been quiet, never really bothers anybody. You were kind of shocked, to tell you the truth.
But tonight, authorities say the investigation is not over.
The work is not done here, but this is a major step forward.
Jessica Taylor's remains were discovered in 2011. Hiraman is not charged with her murder today, but her cousin hopes this arrest will bring answers.
I'm hopeful for the future, and I'm hopeful that a connection is made.
Beijing senior diplomat Wang Yi has urged Japan to handle the discharge of its Fukushima nuclear tainted water into the ocean with great care, rather than going its own way. Wang made the comments when meeting Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs Yoshimasa Hayashi in Jakarta yesterday. Meanwhile, at the tsunami-wrecked Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, the Associated Press filmed on Friday key equipment and facilities before the release of the nuclear-tainted water. Footage shows blue pipelines are designed to help dilute treated water with hundreds of times the volume of seawater. The treated water from the tanks will be transported through a thinner single pipeline after treatment, mixing, and testing. Back locally, Chief Executive John Lee says the city needs to roll out policies to attract more global talent in response to Hong Kong's recent drop in competitiveness rankings. In the latest World Competitiveness Yearbook, Hong Kong fell by 2 places to 7th place. The CE noted that key factors that led to this include the city's unemployment rate and housing problem, adding that the government will continue to improve related policies to attract more people to the SAR. Seafood is an integral part of Hong Kong's culinary culture, but some items served in seafood restaurants are actually considered endangered species. Timothy Lee spoke with some top marine biology experts to find out what actions are needed to help ensure a sustainable marine environment.
Sai Kung, perhaps one of the most iconic spots in the city for those wishing to seek out the freshest seafood. This is one of the few places in Hong Kong where fishermen bring in fresh seafood on a daily basis. But given the low diversity of seafood in the city, around 90% of Hong Kong's seafood is imported. Many restaurants that purchase it do not identify whether certain species of fish are considered to be endangered. During his visit to Hong Kong, marine biologist Professor Daniel Pauly from the University of British Columbia noted that endangered species such as the Napoleon fish are still readily available in restaurants and wet markets, a practice that he believes should be regulated.
An important thing is that the population is made aware of which fish are endangered, needs protection, that while other fish maybe need less of it. So it would be good if the fish that are really on a red list of IUCN, of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, if people were made aware of that. The biodiversity of Hong Kong is worth saving.
But he stressed the government has recently taken the right step towards marine environment sustainability.
I think the most important thing that happened to protect the fish in Hong Kong and their diversity is the ban of trawling. Trawls are nothing but a machine to destroy biodiversity.
Local marine biologist Yvonne Sadovi suggests that authorities and restaurants could use labels to help residents identify what types of seafood they should purchase to help the environment.
It would be very useful for consumers if the government labeled or required labeling of fish in supermarkets, restaurants, wet markets, for the kind of fish it is, so the species, where it comes from, the country, and how it's produced. And that kind of information is very useful for the public to be able to make decisions if they want to make choices to obtain sustainable seafood.
The marine biologists say that seafood gourmets who want to help the sustainability of marine life can feel reassured eating scallops and these abalones from northeast China. The experts hope that Hong Kong residents who wish to raise awareness of sustainability could choose dishes certified by seafood certification bodies. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
This weekend, some citizens took boat trips trying to catch a glimpse of a whale that appeared around Sai Kung waters over the past 2 days. A bustling sight at Sai Kung Pier. This man going on a junk boat party said he would love to have a whale encounter as there are no such opportunities even at the ocean park. This man, however, expressed worries that propellers of boats might injure a whale. The whale was spotted in Sai Kung waters over the past 2 days. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department urged citizens to refrain from causing nuisance to the whale. If the whale is sighted, they should keep a distance to minimize chances of collision. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.